Once upon a time, in a land very far away, there lived a king named Alaric. He was a good man, but he carried a heavy worry in his heart. You see, King Alaric had 12 daughters. They were the most beautiful princesses in the entire world, ranging from the eldest, Elena, to the very youngest, Lily. They lived in a grand castle with high stone walls and floors made of smooth white marble. But every morning, a strange mystery appeared on that polished floor. Imagine, if you will, the king's room. The sun comes up, shining through the heavy velvet curtains. The king wakes up, rubs his tired eyes, and looks at the floor. And there, in a messy pile, lie 12 pairs of shoes. These were not just any shoes. They were made of the finest pink and white silk, soft and delicate. When the princesses went to bed the night before, the shoes were new. They smelled of fresh flowers and were perfect. But in the morning, oh, they were ruined. The king picked up one of the shoes. He looked at it closely. The bottom was completely worn out, as if the person wearing it had walked for many, many miles on rough stones. The pretty pink silk was torn. The heels were scraped and broken. The king was confused. He was also very frightened. Every night he locked the door to the princess's room. He knew they were inside. He had the only key. So how could this happen? He would ask them, his voice shaking with worry. "Where do you go, my dear daughters? What happens to your shoes?" But the princesses would only look at him with tired eyes. They would smile a secret smile and say, "We were sleeping, father. We only dreamt." The king knew this was not the truth, but he did not know how to help them. He saw that his daughters were pale. He saw that they were always tired, yawning in the middle of the day. He felt that some dark magic was stealing their energy. So the king made a big announcement. He sent messengers to every town and village. He said, "Any man who can discover where my daughters go at night may choose one of them to be his wife, and he will also become the future king." Many men came to the castle. They heard the promise of a crown and a beautiful wife. First came the brave knights. They wore heavy metal armor that clanked when they walked. They carried big, sharp swords. They looked at the princesses and thought, "I will win this prize." They were proud and loud. They wanted to feel powerful. Then came the rich princes. They wore clothes made of gold and velvet. They looked at the castle and thought, "I want to own this." They were greedy. But all of them failed. When they sat down to watch the princess's door at night, a strange thing happened. Their eyelids grew heavy. Their heads began to nod. No matter how hard they tried, they fell into a deep, deep sleep. When they woke up in the morning, the sun was shining and the princess's shoes were ruined once again. These men failed because they did not care about the sisters. They only cared about the reward. They wanted to be important. They did not have love or kindness in their hearts. Then a different kind of man arrived at the palace gates. His name was Leo. Leo was a prince, but he did not look like one. He did not wear shining armor. He did not carry a big sword to fight dragons. He wore a simple cloak, and his boots were dusty from walking. Leo was a quiet man. He liked to read books and listen to the birds sing. He was a scholar, a man who loved to learn. When Leo met the 12 sisters, he did not look at them like prizes to be won. He looked at their faces. He saw the dark circles under their eyes. He saw that their hands were shaking just a little bit. He thought to himself, "They are not bad people. They are just very, very tired. They look like they are carrying a heavy weight." His eyes met the eyes of the youngest sister, Lily. She looked like a delicate flower. She seemed afraid, but also curious. Leo smiled at her gently. It was a kind smile that said, "I am not here to hurt you. I am here to understand." The eldest sister, Elena, spoke to him. "You are welcome, Prince Leo," she said, "but you should go home. No one can solve this mystery." Leo bowed his head respectfully. "I do not wish to solve a mystery for a prize," he said softly. "I only wish to make sure you are safe." That night, Leo was given a small bed in the room right next to the princesses. He lay down and closed his eyes, but he did not go to sleep. He remembered an old story he had read in his books. The story said that to see magic, one must remain very quiet and pretend to be asleep. So Leo began to breathe slowly and deeply, in and out, in and out. He made a soft snoring sound, just like a sleeping man. He kept his eyes open just a tiny crack. He watched the shadows on the wall. He waited for a long time. Bong, bong, bong. The big clock outside struck midnight. The air suddenly felt different. The air became cold and crisp, smelling like rain. When Leo watched as the 12 princesses got out of bed, they did not look tired anymore. They looked excited. They laughed softly and put on beautiful dresses that sparkled in the moonlight. Then the most amazing thing happened. The eldest sister clapped her hands 3 times. Suddenly, the wooden floor in the center of the room began to disappear. The wood melted away, and a staircase appeared. It was a glowing, magical staircase going down deep into the ground. One by one, the sisters walked down the stairs. Leo waited until Lily, the last one, had disappeared. Then he jumped up. He put on his heavy cloak. He walked very softly to the hole in the floor. He took a deep breath. "I must be brave," he thought. "I must see where they go." Leo stepped onto the magical stairs. Down, down, down he went. He walked deep into the earth. When he reached the bottom, he gasped. He was not in a dark cave. He was in a beautiful forest. But it was not like the forests we know. The trees were made of solid silver. The leaves were made of silver too. When the wind blew, the leaves did not rustle like paper. They made a sound like tiny, beautiful bells. Ting, ting, ting. Leo hid behind a silver tree. He watched the princesses walking ahead. He wanted to bring back proof for the king, so he reached out and snapped a small twig from a silver tree. Crack! The sound was very loud. Lily stopped and turned around. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "It was just the wind," her sister said. "Come on, we must hurry." They walked further. They passed a forest where the trees were made of gold. Then they passed a forest where the leaves were made of glittering diamonds. It was so bright and beautiful that Leo had to squint his eyes. Finally, they came to a dark, black lake. On the water, there were 12 boats waiting. The princesses got into the boats, but there was no boat for Leo. So Leo did something very brave. He stepped into the cold water. He grabbed the back of Lily's boat and held on tight. He made himself small so no one could see him. The boats moved across the water to a shining palace on the other side. Music was coming from the palace, loud, happy music with drums and violins. When they arrived, the princesses ran into the ballroom. Leo hid behind a heavy curtain and watched. What he saw made his heart feel both happy and sad. In the castle above, the princesses had to be perfect. They had to sit still. They had to be quiet. But here, in this secret world, they were free. They began to dance. They spun around and around. They jumped high into the air. They laughed and twirled. They were letting out all their feelings. They danced to forget their worries. They danced to feel alive. Leo watched Lily. She was dancing with her eyes closed. She looked so peaceful. He looked at her shoes. Thump, thump, thump. Her delicate pink shoes hit the hard stone floor again and again. Now I understand, Leo thought. They ruin their shoes because they are running. They are running away from a life where they cannot be themselves. They danced for hours. Soon the joy turned into exhaustion. Their faces became pale again. Their feet began to hurt. The magic was fading. As the sun began to rise far above them, the sisters hurried back to the boats. They were limping now. Their shoes were full of holes. Leo ran ahead of them. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him. He ran through the diamond forest, the gold forest, and the silver forest. He climbed the stairs, up, up, up. He jumped onto his little bed just seconds before the sisters came back into the room. He lay still, holding the silver twig tight against his chest. The next morning, the king sat on his throne. He looked very sad. He expected Leo to say, "I failed, just like the others." The 12 princesses stood in a line, looking at the floor. They were afraid. "Well, Prince Leo," the king asked quietly, "did you sleep well?" Leo stepped forward. He did not look proud. He looked kind. He walked over to Lily and gave her a small nod. He wanted her to know that he would protect her. "Your Majesty," Leo said, "your daughters do not leave the castle to do bad things. They leave to survive." The king was surprised. "What do you mean?" Leo explained. "They go to a world beneath the floor, a place where trees are made of silver and gold. They go there to dance. They dance because they need to be free." "That is impossible," the king whispered. Leo reached into his pocket. He pulled out the branch from the silver forest. It shined with a brilliant light. It was brighter than the candles in the room. This is from the forest where they dance." The secret was out. Lily looked at Leo, waiting for him to be angry. But Leo spoke to the king again. "It is a beautiful place," Leo said, "but it is lonely. Your daughters dance in the dark because they feel they cannot dance in the sunlight. They need your love, not your locks." The king stood up. Tears filled his eyes. He looked at his daughters. He finally saw them, not as princesses who broke rules, but as young women who needed happiness. He walked down and took the silver branch. "I have been blind," the king said. "I worried about the shoes. I never thought about the feet that wore them." The king kept his promise. He told Leo he could choose a wife. Leo walked up to Lily. He took her hand gently. "I choose you, Lily," he said softly. "Not because you are a princess, but because I saw how you dance when you are free. I want to help you dance like that every day, right here in the real world." And so everything changed. There was a great wedding. Leo asked the king to unlock all the doors. He invited musicians from the villages to come and play happy, loud music in the castle ballroom. When the music started, it was not slow and boring. It was fast and wild. Lily and Leo stepped onto the floor. Lily was wearing strong, comfortable shoes. She smiled at Leo, and they began to dance. They spun and laughed right there in the sunlight. The other sisters joined in. Then the king joined in. The happiness was so strong that it felt like magic, but it was better than the underground magic, because this magic was real. It was the magic of family and freedom. The sisters never went back to the dark world underground. They didn't need to. They had brought the joy up to the surface. Leo and Lily ruled the kingdom with kindness. They taught everyone that it is important to listen, and even more important to be free. And they lived happily ever after.